Good day, everyone. My name is Gabriel Mekuleyi, and the subject I'll be handling, as you can see from the slide, is biology, which is the study of life. And the topic we're going to be treating today is habitat. Now, before we go into the definition and the likes, we're going to look at the performance objective. The students are expected to be able to describe the characteristics of marine and estuarine habitats. They are expected to be able to describe the pattern of distribution of plants and animals in marine habitats, noting the dominant ones, recognize some adaptive features of the plants and animals in the habitat, infer the food chain of the organisms, and also to determine some of the physical factors like temperature, light, wind, etc. Now, the definition. A habitat can be defined as a place where an organism lives or dwells naturally. And there are two known types of habitats, aquatic and terrestrial. Although we are also acquainted with arboreal habitat, which is subdivided under terrestrial habitat. But our main focus today will be on aquatic habitat. And what's an aquatic habitat? This is a water body where certain organisms such as fish, crab, shark, and the likes live naturally. There are three types of aquatic habitats, namely marine or saltwater habitat, estuarine or brackish water habitat, and freshwater habitat. Now we look at the marine habitat. This refers to aquatic habitat which contains salt water, and examples include oceans and open seas. And please note that the marine habitat constitutes 70% of the Earth. Now we'll look at the characteristics of marine habitat. Salinity is high. The density of this habitat is high, hence it allows many organisms to float in it. The water pressure increases with depth. That means as you go deeper into the ocean, the pressure increases. It represents the largest of all habitats. Now, in this habitat, currents are produced by wind at the surface of the ocean. Tides are alternate rise and fall of the surface of the ocean. The oxygen concentration is highest at the surface and decreases with depth. What's the reason for this is due to light intensity at the surface. The light intensity is at the highest, and as you go deep into the ocean, there is decrease in the amount of light intensity. Salt water is alkaline in a pH range of 8 to 9.0. And light penetrates the ocean's water to a maximum depth of 200 meters. Now let's look at the major zones of the marine habitat. The marine habitat is broadly divided into littoral and benthic zone. We'll look from the picture we have here. The littoral zone is a region that extends over the continental shelf to a depth of about 200 meters, and it can be further subdivided into the following: the subzone, the part of the zone exposed, the intertidal zone. This is covered with water during high tide and exposed to air during low tide. The subtidal zone extends from the low tide mark to a depth of about 200 meters. At each of these zones, there are various organisms that live in this type of zones. There are some who can survive in the splash zones. There are some who can survive in intertidal zones. There are some who survive in the subtidal zones. And I give example. For example, we have those who live in intertidal zones. We have some crustaceans that live in the intertidal zones. Now, we look at the benthic zone. This is a zone under the water and it extends to a depth of about 10,000 meters. But please note that as of the current research, no living being or no recorded research has been known to determine the total depth of the ocean. But for the amount that we have here is to the extent of which research has reached. Now, the water on the continental shelf is known as neritic water, and the one beyond the shelf is known as oceanic water. Now, based on depth and penetration of light, the following subzones are found in the benthic zone, and they include euphotic zone, dysphotic, and aphotic zone. Now, you see that in the photic zones, we have lots of organisms. Why? Because it encourages the transfer of energy from the producer to the final consumers and then to the decomposers. There is enough light intensity or light penetration for photosynthesis to occur, unlike the aphotic zone where the water there is cold and dark. There's no light intensity or light do not penetrate to this zone. So hence we have few organisms that survives in this region. Now, the distribution of organisms in marine habitats. The following organisms are found in marine habitats and they include seaweed, algae, diatoms, barnacles, cartilaginous fishes like sharks, bony fish, and the likes. And note, your knowledge of food chain and food web is very important in this topic. A simple food chain can be deduced from the organisms listed above. And we have the here. The seaweed acts as the producer as it receives, manufactures its food from light energy by converting light energy to chemical energy. And this energy is transferred from the seaweed to the shrimps to the tilapia and then to the final consumer, which is the shark. And that explains the food chain, which is a linear relationship that involves the transfer of energy via food from the producer to the final consumer. Now, we look at the other type, the second type of aquatic habitat, which is the estuary or can be called brackish water habitat. An estuary or brackish water is defined as a habitat created by the mixing of fresh water from the inland and salt water from the ocean or seas because of tidal actions. Now, the characteristics of estuarine habitats include fluctuating current and salinity varies during the day, month, or year. Organisms show tolerance to fluctuation in temperature, turbidity, and density due to persistent tidal fluctuation. Estuarine habitat contains high level of nutrients. Oxygen content of estuarine habitat is generally low. And on a final note, the distribution of organisms in an estuary include red mangrove, white mangrove, raffia palm, fishes, mud skippers, barnacles. Like plants like mangrove have breathing roots called pneumatophores, and this helps them to survive in this kind of habitat. There we also have various type of organisms that are able to survive in this habitat. They're able to survive because of some particular features they possess. It could be structural, it could be behavioral, or it could be due to their appearance. And note that you should be able to explain how energy is transferred within a trophic level. Thank you very much for taking your time to listen to today's topic. God bless.